Welcome to the Tao of Pizza, where we feature top logistics leaders, entrepreneurs, and supply chain innovators and share their inspiring stories with a holistic twist.
Mark Hiddleson here, host of the Tao of Pizza podcast, where I talk with top industry innovators in the warehousing, logistics, and supply chain business with a holistic twist. Before I introduce today's guest, this episode is brought to you by Specialized Storage Solutions, Inc. And I've spent decades building warehouse systems that actually work. And after conversations with clients and peers at Manifest in Las Vegas, one thing is clear: innovation only matters when it shows up on the warehouse floor. At Specialized Storage Solutions, we provide industry-leading warehouse storage solutions nationwide. So if you have a facility that needs racking, shelving, carts, conveyors, or mezzanines, we help across the full life cycle: design, engineering, installation, inspections, and repairs, all focused on real throughput, real people, and real constraints. And here's something many people don't realize: we actually help with permit acquisition services. Yeah, we handle the red tape so you don't have to. We take a holistic view of your entire supply chain ecosystem, blending physical infrastructure with modern thinking around automation, flow, and adaptability to help our clients continuously improve, not just install and move on. So to learn more, visit our website at specialracks.com. Give us a call at 707-732-3892. And just for podcast listeners, I give my personal email, which is markhiddleson at AOL. Yeah, I still use AOL, and I'm proud of it. So if you're ready to design warehouse systems built for where the industry is going, not just where it's been, drop us a line. And then one more quick shout out before introducing today's guest. I want to give a big thank you to Nathan Cheney of the Supply Cheney podcast. He didn't introduce me to today's guest, but I saw Katie on his show first. So check out the Supply Cheney podcast. They specialize in helping connecting supply chain professionals through creative content and experiences. So today we're joined by Katie Date, and Katie is the Senior Vice President of Industry Relations and Strategic Initiatives at Manifest, the future of supply chain and logistics. Katie brings a rare mix of industry depth and ecosystem level perspective, having built programs and communities that connect shippers, innovators, and operators shaping the future of supply chain. She's right at the center where strategy meets execution. Katie, welcome to the Tao of Pizza.
Thank you so much for having me, Mark. I'm excited to talk all things Manifest and learn more about your experience and talk about what's coming up next.
Yeah, this is, I think I told you on the invitation that I had a client. We have a ski trip that we do every year, and it's sort of business, it's sort of pleasure. Because we own businesses, we do end up talking about it. And my client is a third-party warehouse, and they really want to stay at the cutting edge. And I've been we missed Manifest a year before because of the ski trip, and he called me about a month before, and he said, "Bro, we got to cancel the ski trip, reschedule." We didn't cancel, we rescheduled because we have to be at Manifest. So I'm sure we'll talk more about that, but we were not disappointed. 7,000 or 8,000 people, really cutting edge, great energy. So before we get into that, share a little bit about how you got into the supply chain business, your background. Give us a little background.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am very typical in that I really stumbled into supply chain, went to college, and I thought I wanted to be in communications and work for a professional sports team. But joke's on me, as many people in supply chain, while you're in college, and again, this is the 90s, you have to do some internships. And so I did an internship at a distribution center for a home improvement store in the Midwest. People may be familiar with it, Menards. It's like Home Depot and Lowe's here on the East Coast, but very Midwest centric. And was the only female that decided to do this internship, and was at the distribution center and really just fell in love with moving stuff and just really the fascination of, we were getting tile from Italy and, bringing in wood from, the north of Wisconsin, and just things coming from all over. And it just really was fascinating to me. So that's kind of how I started my foray into supply chain, not even knowing what supply chain was. And I don't even know if we called it supply chain, back in the late 90s. And then I went on to do some operational rotation programs with Enterprise Holdings and with Starbucks, and did a little bit of consulting, always keeping that kind of love for operations. And while I was in consulting, did a project where I started to work with MIT in the Center for Transportation and Logistics, met the executive director there. And he's like, I have been looking for someone who can bridge the gap between our corporate partners, because they did, a lot with industry. They were very industry focused and still are today. And can really speak the language, but can also speak with our research team and kind of bridge that gap. And so I kind of took a leap of faith. Not being a true academic in any stretch of the imagination. And that was in 2013. And really, fell in love with supply chain and everything that moves, and just really immersed myself in every aspect of the supply chain. I made some amazing relationships with, different corporate partners. I helped open international centers that did the same thing as that center, research outreach, and education throughout the world. So in China, in Malaysia, in Spain, in Luxembourg, and really got the opportunity to learn the global supply chain. And as a part of that, I started a research initiative in supplier diversity and inclusion, and founded the MIT Women in Supply Chain Initiative. And that was in 2017. I did a lot of research during the pandemic around, the use of diverse suppliers and how they were able to be more agile. Ended up getting published in the Harvard Business Review. And at that time, Manifest was just like a baby little seedling that they were developing. And they reached out to me in 2023 to be a keynote speaker at their second Manifest conference. So the first one was during the Omicron wave. And this was like their debut, making a splash. And so they invited me to come and talk about the research that I have been doing at MIT for the last, decade. And I really, Manifest was still small at that point, but I fell in love with the team and what they were doing, and had this, very serendipitous conversation backstage after I got done with my talk with Courtney Muller, who's the president of Manifest. And she's like, would you ever consider coming and working with us? And at that point, I had been doing not the same thing, because I got to do a lot of really cool things, for 10 years. And this just seemed like a great opportunity to be a part of something magical. And now fast forward to 2026, we just had our fifth Manifest, and I can confidently say that my gut was right. This is something very magical. And, we just had a Manifest event with over 7,500 supply chain professionals coming together to talk about, supply chain tech and innovation, and, what's going to happen in logistics in the future. And so here we are.
Yeah, what a journey. So 10 years, I had no idea, 10 years doing research at MIT.
Yeah.
That is amazing. So you're invited to be a guest speaker, and that's the serendipity of
Yep.
how it works. Well,
yeah.
I want to get into Manifest, because there's something, I've attended a lot of events. I've built my career over developing strategic partnerships, learning about the industry, because what we do is rack shelving and systems, but it all coordinates with software and really people. And there's something, I want to talk a little bit about the magic. I'm glad you called it magic. There is something different about the way relationships are curated, so how much, like, how do you create the magic? I mean, what's your secret formula? Because I go to a lot of events and just there's a higher level of connection. So I made more, what I would call intimate connections where it's more than just, hey, what do you do? And they're like, well, we're B2B tech stack for da da da. And you walk away and you're going, well, I don't understand what any of those acronyms mean, but nice to meet you. Manifest, it seems like it was very human, I guess would be a good way to describe it. And then the buzz that's happening afterwards, people are staying in touch, people are following up. So give us some behind the scenes, like, what do you think creates that magic that allows
Yeah.
that?
So, I think a little bit of it is the environment that's been created post pandemic. People really crave that connection. But what we do that's different is we really, curate the audience. We're really intentional with making sure that we're inviting the right kinds of people to be there, the right mix. We're very intentional that it doesn't sway too far in one direction. From the very beginning, the mission of Manifest was to be an ecosystem event. And so many supply chain events out there focus just on, one vertical. It's a logistics conference, or it's focusing on warehousing, or, it's just for shippers, and shippers are very protected, and, they just talk to each other. We intentionally bring together the startups and the investors that are investing in the ecosystem, and, all of the service providers, and, all of the shippers, the retails, the brands, the manufacturers, the distributors, all in one room together, and try to facilitate meaningful conversation. Some of that is created by our tech that we have, our one-to-one meeting zone, where we match people to make meetings. But a lot of it is just created by, the positivity and energy of the audience. Part of that's because it's in Vegas. I think people, are able to maybe, let their hair down a little bit. But, from the very beginning, we've never taken ourselves too seriously. There's always been a real focus on the activations in the expo hall being fun. So puppies and rosé and a beer garden, and really the the anti, stiff white shirt and tie kind of environment. We've really been intentional with that.
Yeah, the rosé all day was, and I forget, was that a separate booth or was that a vendor? I can't remember.
No, it was a separate. Yeah, it's a sponsored activation. Yeah.
Yeah, so it wasn't a particular. Was it who sponsored the rosé all day? Because they need credit, because that was a great. I'll turn myself in. I'm from Napa Valley. I would hit the rosé all day, kind of early on some of those days, and it does. A lot of great conversations were happening there, because people are going, it does kind of fun. Like you said, your guard is lowered down. And I wanted to mention the tech too, because there was a AI, your system, you filled out a profile when you register. And like, I don't like to get the app for the events, right? It's like, I'm not going to get the app, but I talked to somebody. I'm like, do you have any suggestions? I'm going to this. What do I do? And they're like, you have to do the app. So I said, okay, I'll do the app. Filled it out.
Yeah.
And it based on my interest, who I wanted to meet, our company, what we're looking to, it gave me recommendations out of 7,500 people. It's like, here's the 30 people you want to try to meet. So it's amazing. So you've turned me into a believer. I was like, oh, I don't need the app. I'll just wander around and find my way around. But wow, what an effective way. And then the meeting spaces. So share a little bit about how that evolved, because, you're at the 7,000 conference. How do you meet up with somebody and you've got little numbered circles, or there were the tables were really cool. So how did that evolve, and how's that working?
Yeah. So as we grew from an event, that was attracting right around 1,000 people to now an event that, is over 7,500, we've been very intentional with trying to keep that, small, intimate connection feel. And one of those is creating the meeting space where you're not struggling to find, what coffee shop should we meet at, or what corner. Like, everyone knows you go to the meeting zone in the app, you're able to program in the table to meet at. You have that dedicated time, so you're not fighting, with someone else to get that table. And the biggest problem is now when the meeting zone gets filled up during the expo hall hours. But it's a huge zone, and we just keep making it bigger every year. So it's a great problem to
Yeah.
have.
Well, we had a meeting at table, I think it was table two or something, and we got there in table two, somebody else, their meeting ran long, so table two wasn't available. So I don't know, the app must track because you have your time, right? So the app knows. That's one of the
Mhm.
amazing ththings about it. It's like you've got 50 tables and they're all booked in 15-minute increments, but there was an empty table nearby, and it just kind of worked. Well, like you meet up at table two and you're not locked in. That's the flexibility,
Right.
adaptability of the supply chain, right? We just took
Yeah.
table four
Just
and
roll with it.
yeah. So I wanted to ask you a specific question because you mentioned curating and creating an ecosystem. Well, ecosystem is a word I've been using for a long time now. Like everybody, I'm like, yes, everybody is that word. How do you, because to me at this, really the shippers, especially peer-to-peer learning, I think peer-to-peer learning is really important. And if like I go to Modex and ProMat every year, and that's a lot of, the material handling, the conveyor systems and all the like solution provider, I think you would put as innovators or in your, you got the shippers, the innovators, and then how do you get the shippers to go? Because like you said, everyone wants more shippers, but then they're the clients, so everybody's trying to meet up. So what's your secret for getting the shippers involved and they know they're going to get approached, right?
Yeah. So I am ferocious in trying to protect the shippers because those are my people, and I try as much as I can to help them navigate. So we do have a hosted shipper program where we, help them, curate their agenda. We make meeting suggestions. We have roundtables that are specifically for them to meet up with each other. We have a hosted shipper lounge where they're able to go and just connect with each other. But the simple fact is, in this day and age with AI, like there's only so much that I can do to protect them from like the thousands of outreaches. And I'm hoping that we swing in the other direction a little bit because this year I was even starting to get phone calls and email outreach. And I'm like, I'm not your customer. Like, you need to really narrow in on your ICP a little bit because I'm not going to buy your solutions.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's one opportunity. I think on LinkedIn, I get pitched a lot of stuff that's not even relevant to me, and I'm like, wow, I have a really good online profile. If you could tell, I have a host of podcasts. So if you learn anything about me, then you would realize, what would be a great strategic partner, referral partner service we could use. It's amazing that people will not do enough homework, just ask for a meeting, ask for a meeting, ask for a meeting, and instead of being more targeted. What?
Yeah, more than ever, I'm seeing more of a spray and pray approach,
Yeah.
and I feel like that's not effective. Companies don't want to do. I mean, yourself when someone is reaching out to you, five times, and you're not their customer profile, like you're going to get frustrated. You're not going to want to work with them. So, my hope is that we swing away from that a little bit. That companies will learn that relationship ultimately, at the end of the day is the way that you make business successful. But we're in a unique time with AI right now and all these different ways to automate outreach and sales. It's really interesting to me.
Yeah, I could. My old boss. I was on LinkedIn. This happened a few years ago. This was like probably 5 or 6 years ago. I got an email. It was my old boss inviting me to coffee on LinkedIn as a DM. I'm like, oh, this is cool. I don't really ever do this. But then as I responded, I could tell that his response back. I'm like, wait a minute, this isn't my old boss. This is some kind of bot engaging me with thinking that
Yeah.
I'm gonna have this nostalgic. So I was kind of mad, but I did call him anyway. I was like, hey, dude. But I
So
can,
it worked.
yeah, yeah, it worked. But it's not. I mean, in a cold call, it's not right. It's kind of
No.
irritating. But I hadn't really thought about that automated outreach, and we don't even send emails. Like I published a book in July, and for the launch and everything, you need to send emails like, okay, it's coming out in a week and whatever. And the publisher goes, do you want to send us emails or have us send it? I'm like, you guys send it. I go because I'm not sending people 5 emails in a month. I just don't
No.
do that.
Yeah.
Um, but a lot of automated systems, they are. Yeah. Yeah. Phone, text, email. Um, so anyways, and Manifest was really good about the people followed up too. That's another thing I know for me for networking. It isn't that you met 400 people. It's like, how many did you actually follow up with after?
Yeah.
So I interviewed, I don't know if you know, Danielle Spinelli, the fraud girl,
Oh yeah.
Tell Me Everything
Yeah.
podcast. So
Yep.
she's a rock star. I interviewed her earlier this week. So your episodes will come out one right after the other.
Oh,
But
cool.
I was impressed. And then you can meet with somebody, even though she's not an ideal client for us, she's an ideal solution for maybe for some of our clients. So I can learn,
Yeah.
get more educated so that I can introduce people. And then she knows more about what we do. So she has, mutual friends we can share. So I wanted
That's
to,
about relationship. Like that's the, you know what I mean? Like it's all about curating those and taking the time to create, maybe they're not the right, necessarily customer for you, but it's a resource and you can be a connector because you took the time and didn't just,
yeah,
pass her up.
yeah. Yeah, and then I forget, I'm pretty sure she followed up. And so when she followed up, and at the time when we met on the floor of Manifest, I didn't realize she had a podcast. But then when she reached
Okay.
out to connect on LinkedIn, I'm like, oh, wait a minute, she's a podcast host. And that's one of my goals for going there was to connect with other podcast hosts, because I'd already met Nathan and I know Kevin Lawton for the new warehouse. Do you know, I'm sure you have to know.
Yeah, Kevin's awesome. Yeah, I've been in
So,
Kevin's show a couple times.
so I
He's
wanted to
awesome.
ask you a question because now it seems like everybody has a podcast. And I'm like, well, and for me, when I did it, I've been kind of looking into the future. Like to me, I think podcast is kind of replacing, like when I started my company, it was 2005, everybody had a website. And I didn't really feel like I needed it. It's like, I don't need a website. I got a yard with 100 truckloads of racking. I'm going to sell it. But I got a website just because it was good advice. And I think podcasts, just because it's a more personal interaction. You can have specific conversation. It's a real person. So how are podcasts? What's the Katie Date take on how podcasts are making a contribution to the industry?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have dedicated space at Manifest for people to do their podcasts in the podcast booth. So we, as Manifest, firmly support podcasts. I think it's a great way to be able to get differing, perspectives out there into the world. Me personally, I don't say yes to every podcast because there are a lot of people that reach out to me specifically because of the MIT connection. Everybody sees MIT and they're like, oh, um, I do my homework. I want to make sure that, the people that I'm talking to on a podcast are actually making a difference in the industry. And I've actually given some feedback to, not to characterize, but they're typically younger podcasters wanting to kind of throw spaghetti at the wall. And, I've told them, make sure that you have a pretty clear call to action of your podcast before you start going out, because to your point, you need to be able to contribute to the industry. You need to make sure that your podcast is in an area where you're uncovering something unique. Maybe it's even your personality and how you approach conversations. For example, I think Nathan Cheney, he has a very distinct kind of style that he does his podcast, and he talks about the supply chain in general, but he does a good job with the interaction with his guests. And so really encouraging them to before you just open up your Zoom and, start a podcast, make sure you know where you're trying to go a little bit with it. Because to your point, there's a lot of podcasts out there. And the last thing that I want to do is just be more noise out there. I want to make sure that, the way that I'm contributing to the supply chain is a way that's going to help move the needle.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know about MIT. Well, I'm super stoked about it. I got that as a free bonus point. And I've been telling people about Manifest. Even I think I either missed 1 or 2 years. I know I missed 1 year for sure. And I was like, damn, next year I'm going to go to that because I just saw the people who were going in my network and what it was all about. So I'm hoping this will promote, man. And I've been talking about a buzz. I have this hat I got from Geodis. I'm pretty sure that was their swag. And it's got a interstate logo and it says Manifest 26.
Oh, cool. I
Yeah, it's
didn't
like
see
an
that.
interstate, like a highway, like the little interstate, the blue and red. And,
Yeah.
and then it says Manifest 26. And so, manifest, it has multiple meanings, right? There's like a shipping manifest, but then there's like
Yeah.
manifesting, like making things happen. I get more compliments on that hat. Like I don't usually wear a hat to appointments or anything, but like I've been wearing it to clients so that they'll ask me about it.
That's so cool.
So uh, I want to talk about you guys are moving into Europe. So share a little bit about that. I saw something on LinkedIn. So just that's exciting because to me, Europe is like 20 years ahead of us when it comes to automation, making the most because their labor costs are so much higher, building costs are higher. So they're really squeezing more out of their boxes and labor force. So
Yeah, absolutely. So probably like year 2 of Manifest, people started asking like, okay, where are you going to go next? And we've been very intentional with talking to both our sponsors and our shipper attendees. Like, where do you think we're needed? Because again, we don't want to create noise. We want to go to a space and a location where we can contribute. So, the first Manifest Europe will be in Portugal in October of 2027. So, in Southern Europe, there aren't a ton of logistics and supply chain events. There are a ton that happen in Amsterdam, Germany. But we really felt like Portugal was a unique place. It's a port and a great place to launch Manifest Europe. So more details to come, but I hear October is a great time to be in Portugal, so I'm really looking forward to it. Another great wine place for you as a fan of Napa Valley.
I think I'm gonna put it on my wish list because I don't see any reason why I couldn't be there in October. And I wouldn't. I've always wanted to go to Portugal. What a great reason! Do you have a venue, and do you have a website created where we can put a link in the show notes? People can learn more about the dates and where it's going to be.
Yeah, we can definitely get you a link to put in the show notes with the exact date and location.
So the question that I was dying to ask you, and the thing, Nathan had a 1 minute clip. I don't know if you've seen it, but it was brilliant because you were sharing, and women. I have a lot of friends that are women in this industry and they've shared that it's been a challenge in our business, especially selling equipment and racking. A really good friend of mine is the president of our engineering company. She took over for her father. And she says, it's a struggle. It's been a struggle to be a woman in this business. And I had no idea that you had studied at MIT and actually published a paper in Harvard Business Review. So but your clip was like, I got tired to explain to people. It's like, no, I'm not the secretary. I'm the one leading.
Yeah.
So share a little bit about what your studies, what you've learned. And I feel like there's a breakthrough. Like I always think things are getting better. I'm kind of overly positive, but share about your journey and how that's impacted your career.
Yeah, so it started at MIT, the very end of 2013. And, when you start a new job, you just kind of take for granted, this is how things are. And like a year or two into sitting down with, these top chief supply chain officers of Fortune 500 companies, I started to ask, like, why are there not more women in the room? Like, women naturally are good at managing supply chains. And so whenever in those meetings at MIT there was a woman, I would latch on and start asking her questions because I'm naturally curious, not ever intending that it was going to be a research initiative or that I was really ever going to do anything with it. I was just really genuinely curious. And after probably a year or so of doing that, my boss is like, maybe you should formalize this. And so I sent out a survey to, at that time, it was probably about 150 women that were in senior roles in our network, and started to ask them about their experience and really learn. And there were kind of four main themes that came out of their journeys. A lot of them had really good sponsorship, and that's how they were able to rise to the roles that they were in. The second was that they provided really good mentorship. So that caused me to start looking into like, what's the real difference between sponsorship and mentorship? And we could do a whole podcast on what I uncovered with that. The third kind of pillar of it was traditional networking did nothing for these women in how they rose in supply chain. It was really like the informal networking and kind of learning how to network in ways that weren't necessarily the traditional. And then the fourth thing, which was super surprising to me at the time, but really makes sense now, they all said yes to international assignments. Every single one of them had done an international assignment and led an international team. And what I kind of uncovered with that, and, in my role at MIT, I ended up taking on, international assignments. When we learn about how others run their supply chains, so back to your point about how Europe, they run their supply chain a lot differently. When you start to learn about other parts of the business and take on those international assignments, it makes you a different kind of leader. And so I took those kind of four areas that all kind of had a thread of relationship in them, and just expanded out. And I did some summits, and I did a bunch of different working groups, and we published some papers around it. And then the pandemic happened, and we couldn't get together as much anymore. So then I pivoted really into looking at supplier diversity and how these diverse suppliers were able to be more agile during the pandemic for suppliers. So yeah, that was kind of my journey.
And I love so would you mind, as you said, we could do a whole podcast, but I'd like the 30 to 90 second distinction between sponsorship and mentorship, because I think those are both, it's a big part of my career. I've been mentored by people. Like I just was lucky that I ran into this person that kind of lifted me up. And so what's the difference just between a mentor and sponsor? Like it's a great.
Yeah. So a sponsor is typically someone who is, maybe 2 degrees above you in an organization. And it's the person when you're not in a room, they're going to talk about you in a positive way. So whether it's a promotion conversation or taking on a different assignment, that person is really like your advocate and can talk well to your strengths. This isn't somebody necessarily that you're meeting with on a regular basis. You're not going to this person with like personal problems or professional problems, but really someone who has your career and the trajectory of your career in mind, because the most important times that you need to be talked about, typically you're not in the room. So you need to make sure that someone who's in that position will talk favorably and say your name when it comes up. A mentor can be someone that's more senior than you, but really doesn't have to be. I've had really great mentorship that's happened with people that are more junior than me. And this is a person who you can, reach out to and talk about, day-to-day professional, but also, some personal development things. The one thing that I caution with mentor-mentee relationships is to make sure that you're both getting mutual benefit out of the relationship. And just like a traditional relationship, it's okay to walk away. And in a lot of because I've done a lot of training with companies to set up mentorship programs within their organizations. And the one piece of advice that I give them is, if you're going to do formal mentorship programs in your organization, make sure that you have an upfront contract. And I know it seems like a little too formal, but it's truly a piece of paper that you can talk with each other about what you hope to get out of the relationship. And if you're not getting it out, then it's okay to walk away.
Mhm. That's great. It is the contract. It's a higher level of accountability. And even if you never look at
Yeah.
it again, Roman, you could look at it and go, we created this. Yeah.
Right. Yep.
That's brilliant. And also and thank you for the sponsor because I really didn't know. And I'm thinking of it in terms of, even if you're building your professional network, those sponsors are out there because they are the ones who will give you a referral. They will, if it comes up, they will bring up your name because sometimes it's scary. You don't know. I really don't know what this person, if you put them under pressure, what's going to happen. But when you've earned that trust in somebody who, and that's with us, a lot of times I know the president of the company or vice president or COO, but our contact is the warehouse manager, maintenance manager, someone we need to borrow a forklift if we're doing a project. But having the people that you're not in a direct relationship, but they know who you are, they know about you. Maybe you've seen them at Manifest when they're
Yeah.
not your client, but you're doing business with their company. I actually had an experience like that at Manifest where I met Luke. I can't think of his last name. It was Coltrack. They had a booth there, and we had just done a really nice project for them. It was a quick turnaround. They wanted to move their pick to light system from one building to another, and they wanted to use their existing equipment. So we gave them some new equipment that they could move into because you can't move your stuff onto the floor and then into the stuff. You've got to have something. So it was really cool. And they were short like 4 beams at the end of the project. And I drove out with one of my project managers. I'm like, I'm in the neighborhood. I'm going to deliver, So they needed 4 beams and we dropped them off so they could get their pick to light running. So I met at Manifest. I was talking to him and this guy was telling me, well, this is Mark. And I'm like, I explained to him, he didn't really get it. But then when he saw who I was, because he was the one who made the decision at the top, but we executed with all these people on the ground. Then he kind of grabbed me and pulled me in and gave me a hug. But I needed Guy because that guy had no idea who I was. But he's going, no,
Right.
Mark, this is Mark. This is your Mark. And then actually was when I gave him my business card. Manifest had one of the coolest things was you could beep people to change information.
The beacons. Yep.
And it was funny because they would work 2 feet away, but I found we were like touching them against each other so they would work. But I gave him my business card. When he saw my business card, he saw the logo and he was like, oh. So that's kind of more like a sponsorship relationship where we're not in direct contact, but if we're in a separate room and the subject comes up or my name comes up, they'll know something about.
He's going to recommend. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you for that distinction because I really, that's another thing, a huge takeaway for me in Manifest is there's all this tech, but it's the people and the relationships that matter most. And there's especially trust. And so it was really good to be in those conversations because the tech is one thing, but it's really people that make a difference. So what are your thoughts on that? And how do you approach it?
Yeah. I mean, I always, whether it's, people that I'm, just networking with or, I have relationships with a lot of former students that will reach out to me and ask for advice. I always tell them supply chain is really small. So you need to make sure that you're taking care of your relationships. Don't be impulsive and, set a bridge on fire because you're upset, because I guarantee that will come back to haunt you. Supply chain is such a small world, and everyone knows everyone. So you need to make sure that you're not burning bridges and that you're really nurturing your relationships. If to your point about follow up, people did a great job following up. If you say you're going to follow up, make sure you actually do it, because those relationships matter. And yes, it's more work on the front end, but it will pay off in the end. Because the one thing that I found out about supply chain and why I encourage so many, younger people that are seeking careers to look into supply chain is it's really good people. Like, you have to work hard in supply chain, but for the most part, you're surrounded by really good people that want to help you, that want to collaborate. So you need to take care of those relationships because it'll pay off in spades.
Yeah, it is a small industry, and it gets smaller and smaller. I mean, the material handling gets even smaller than that because just the
Yeah.
warehousing industry or logistics is small. And what what comes up for me is God, what was I going to say? Well, I was going to ask you what's the biggest pitfall or mistake that you've made, but because when I had Danielle and I said, she said, I was looking at my competitors as enemies. And like in this business, your competitors are your allies because things could change. You could be on that team, you could be collaborating, or somebody could buy out somebody. You could always end up on the same team. So our competitors are really more of a resource than an enemy. But share something. What's something you've learned where you changed your mind on something like that, or a mistake that you learned from?
Yeah. So early in my career, I felt like I needed to always like go in all guns blazing and like overprove myself, and maybe got a little bit of a reputation as having, a tough personality. And as I've gotten older, I've learned that taking like a more laid back approach to things tends to pay off a little bit better. You know, it's it's a lot more beneficial to prove yourself by what you know and what you can add rather than being the loudest voice in the room. And that took me a little while to discover because I felt like I always needed to be the loudest voice in the room, and I needed to come across in a certain way. And it's just not the case.
Oh, so brilliant. Can you offer me a training on that too? Because I'm super laid back, but it's true you get in conversation and I call it the bully archetype. It's not really, it's a bully, but it's just a way of just like forcing your energy of like, ah. And it
Yeah.
works while you're there, but when you go away, it's like poof, grief, what a relief. And then everyone kind of goes back to whatever they were doing. So that's a brilliant observation for yourself. Is something I've worked on is just being more, I don't have to be sometimes I'm the biggest person in the room just because I am, but I don't have to be so. But I can. I can turn it on if I have to. That's the other thing is I'm not
Right.
giving up on that. It's still a part of who I am, and then I have it as
It's a tool in your tool belt, but it's
yeah.
not something that you need to, go in with the big hammer every time.
I love it. That's just so beautiful. So I like to ask questions. Are you using any new tech that you want to share? Um, anything new that you're using?
Yeah, so I am a very curious person by nature, and so I'm constantly, while I'm not using any tech necessarily in my job, I like to try to stay up to speed with, what's going on in the industry so that I can, talk to our customers. And the thing that I've learned the most is there are a lot of companies out there that are saying they're using AI, but that's the extent of it. Like they're just saying they're using AI because it's the cool, kind of buzzy word.
Yeah.
Um, and any leader that I talk to, I really encourage them to go out and make sure that you have at least a baseline understanding of the appropriateness of using AI in your company. Because just because it's the buzzy word, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be the be all end all for your organization.
So what about your personal hobbies or anything? What do you enjoy doing if you're not orchestrating the most magical logistics and supply chain show on earth?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a 5-year-old. So my hobbies have changed significantly since having him. My weekends used to be, being able to go, for a leisurely run in Boston along the river. And now my Saturdays are soccer practice or gymnastics practice, or now we're going to be starting t-ball and golf and like all the things. And now he's decided that in addition to his, sports, that he feels a flair for the dramatics. So this summer we're going to be trying out a theater camp in addition to the golf camp that he's doing. So yeah, he keeps me on my toes. He loves Disney like no child I've ever met before. And being an only child of, two older parents, I think he's benefiting from the fact that, we have that ability to indulge him in his wants probably more than if we would have had him 20 years ago. But we're having a great time.
That is awesome. Those are some great hobbies. And I actually miss those days. My youngest is 22, and but that age group, I have 3 kids. From the time they were like 5 to 15, I coached like 30 different seasons. I was a baseball, basketball coach. I don't know anything about lacrosse, but I coached the season of lacrosse because it was just so fun to be involved and watch your kids grow and develop. And I love the theater. I mean, wow. If my daughter did theater.
I don't know where he heard about it from, but he came home one day and had this like brochure and said he wanted to try it. So sure,
yeah.
We'll try it.
Yeah, that has been so fun. Some of the performances that I've been to, that seeing the watch the kids in the theater, that's a lot of fun. Well, Katie, thank you for choosing this podcast.
Thank you.
I've been looking forward to this, and absolute pleasure. I want to have a link to your Harvest Business Review paper and anything else. What's the best way for people to connect with you?
LinkedIn is the best. My name is super easy, Katie Date. I have a bright red suit on LinkedIn, so I'm easy to find with my picture. And that's the best way to connect with me.
Yeah, awesome. That's how I found you out of 7,000 or 8,000 people at Manifest.
Yeah, in a bright suit. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to the Tao of Pizza podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.